Say, where ideas take shape, thoughts find depth, and every conversation explores the art of thinking beyond the obvious. And today, my special guest. I have a special guest, people. He's a seasoned entrepreneur and commercial real estate expert who has spent decades navigating business growth. And of course, an author too, no other than Mr. Kevin Hart. Welcome, Mr. Kevin on Abstract Essay. Can you please introduce more about yourself that I miss?
Yes, thank you very much. Pleasure to be here. And yes, I guess I'm a bit of an entrepreneur. My trade is really real estate, although I've done many different types of business transactions. Um, I'm a developer. I'm also a redeveloper. A lot of people aren't sure what that means, but basically, I specialize in taking old shopping centers and fixing them and bringing them back to life. That's been a role that I've had for many years in the various jobs that I've had. And it really has been a lot of fun. Uh, like I said, I've got a pretty extensive career. I'll jump in to quickly explain some of the things I've done with redevelopment. And redevelopment is interesting because real estate evolves. One day the regional mall is wow. Everybody's building regional malls all over the country. Every good intersection's got to have a regional mall. Uh, well, then 20, 30, 40 years later, it seems like these regional malls are going empty. Department stores are closing. Real estate evolves. And that's where guys like I come in because a lot of people said, oh no, the malls are going down the tubes. What are we going to do? I see that and I see nothing but opportunity. I see a great piece of real estate at a great intersection, yet it's going empty. Well, it
Mm.
just needs to be redeveloped, needs to be kind of reinvented in some ways. That's actually what I'm doing right now, is the malls. But if you like, I can tell you a little bit about how I got into that side of the business, if you like.
Interesting, Mr. Kevin. And thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and wisdom to the world. And yes, let's do digging of hippie to high rises. What business life really teach you? So tell us.
Okay. Well, it takes a certain type of person to be an entrepreneur and to be a developer, actually. Developers are very creative and they're very hard workers. You have to think out of the box and you have to be a problem solver. The main thing is being a problem solver. I'll tell you where that started for me. Back when I was about 10 years old, I lived on Long Island, and my first job was having a paper route. But see, I couldn't have just one paper route. I had to have two paper routes. So I would deliver the daily news at like 5 in the morning before school, and then I would deliver the news day at about 4 in the afternoon after school. There was a morning paper and an evening paper, and I can remember uh, taking this job on and some of the challenges that I had to overcome. Now, back in those days, when you had a situation in your paper route that you had to resolve, you had to figure it out. You see, today you got helicopter parents. And if you have an issue, you go to your parents and say, Mom, I got a problem. And she steps in and tries to solve it for you. Not back in the 60s. That's not the way it worked. I'll give you an example. On my paper route, I had this one dog. This dog's name was Jaja. And it was this little dog, and it was mean. And it would go rah, 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 rah. And I could not get inside the fence to deliver my newspaper because this thing would bite me. So I had to figure out how to get the paper delivered. So I went up and got one of those shopping carts at one of the supermarkets, and I brought a friend along with me. And I jumped in the shopping cart. He swung the gate open. He pushed me on the sidewalk as hard as he could, closed the gate. The dog's right at my feet. And I would roll up to the door. I grab the door, open it, take the paper, put it in the door knocker, and I would push off and roll all the way back to the fence. Then I'd hop over the fence and I wouldn't get bit. You see, I had to solve the problem. Now, like I said, These days, if a kid has a dog that's going to bite him on his paper route, the kid calls his parents and says, "Hey, sue this lady. Her dog's biting me." Or you knock on that door and tell her to take that dog in. But see, back in the 60s, when you told your mom, "Hey, I got a problem. This dog's biting me," your mom would say, "Draw paper route. Figure it out." You see, that's the way parenting was done back then. And it was great because it forced you as a 10-year-old to figure it out on your own. These days, your parents are always solving your problems for you. You never grow up and you never turn into an entrepreneur. Anyway, so that was just a little quick story on how entrepreneurs start. So, what I mean by problem solving is this. Uh, there was a time when I was in real estate, I was working for a very big company called Kimco Realty. They're a national REIT, one of the biggest real estate REITs in the world, and especially in the United States. Best company I ever worked for. And when I got involved with that company, it was Florida. I opened an office for them in Central Florida, and I was in charge of 85 shopping centers, 13 million square feet. And they had these big department stores and a bunch of little shops next to them. And this department store that they made their deals with, now this is back in the 50s and 60s, was a chain called Zayres. Now, most people listening probably have no idea who that is. Well, Zayres was eventually bought out by a chain called Ames. Now, Ames was from the Northeast, and you probably still don't know who that is because this is back a long time ago. Well, these were department stores that were kind of like Walmart and Kmart. Well, over time, these department stores went out of business. And we had all these shopping centers with these big, empty 80,000 square foot anchors. And the same thing actually happened with Kmart. They started going empty and things like that. So, well, what do you do at a shopping center when you've got 30 shops and you got a big anchor who's supposed to drive the traffic into the shopping center and they're empty? What do you do? Well, it's a problem and it has to be solved. So what I did, I used to go sit in the parking lot and look around and think about it and come up with solutions. The solution for most of those big empty boxes back then was to carve them up. So I used to carve up these 80,000 square foot boxes and make them into three big tenants. I'd put in Ross stores, Bed Bath and Beyond, and Michaels. Those were the perfect match, and they all took about 30,000 square feet each, so they fit perfectly. Well, I would renovate that big empty box. Well, keep in mind, these Ames department stores had such old leases, they were only paying like $1.85 a foot for space. Well, so when I renovated these spaces and put in these bigger tenants, these newer tenants like Ross stores, they were paying me $12 a foot. Well, all of a sudden, the cash flow on the project took off. And when you put in power tenants, and that was the category it was called, power tenants, you build power centers, which were big anchors, 30,000 square feet, and a bunch of them instead of just one big Kmart. That became the trend to take up all these big empty spaces. And when you did that, the traffic came back. Well, then all the shops would fill up again and the rents would all go up. So all of a sudden, the shopping centers with the big empty apartment stores all turned into power centers. And power centers was the rage until department stores started going under and Amazon came along.
Yes.
Oh, when Amazon came, I got to tell you, that messed up everybody. All of a sudden, all of your category killers, that's what they called power centers, category killers. There were major anchors that killed a category. So, for example, all the little stationery stores that were on downtowns and stuff. Well, when Office Depot came in or Office Max, 25,000 square feet, they put all the local stationery stores out of business. That's the way it happened. But when Amazon came and online shopping came, guess what? It clobbered all of the big staples and Office Max because everybody was buying. They were buying their paper supplies online and having it delivered. So all of a sudden, you got them going empty again. Well, that's just what happened with department stores and with malls. Regional malls, the department store sales went down and discounters became the big game. That was Walmart. All of a sudden, you'd got 150,000 square foot Walmart 2 doors down from the mall. Walmart was doing $150 million a year in sales. Department stores were doing $25, $30 million in sales. Their sales were going down, and discount department store sales were going up. And when department store sales went down, the traffic in the malls went down. And when Amazon came online and everybody started shopping online, people stopped going to the malls. So guess what? You tell me, what happens when a mall goes empty? What do you got to do? Take a guess, Daniel.
Well, nobody inside, for sure it will close and bankrupt.
That's right. So I'll tell you what happened. I saw opportunity because as malls got empty, the big mall companies started to give them back to the bank. You see, they had big mortgages on these malls, like $100 million mortgage, like Simon and General Growth and all these Rouse and all these big mall companies. And because the tenants couldn't pay the rent and they started moving out, they couldn't pay their mortgages. So they would give the mall over to the bank because they couldn't pay the mortgage. And now you got a bank with a half empty mall with $100 million mortgage on it that the bank's holding. What are they going to do with it? Well, a bank doesn't know what to do with a mall. They don't know how to redevelop a mall. So they want to sell it. So they end up selling it very cheap. And they write down the loan. And guess who's standing there buying those malls? Guys like me waiting for the opportunity. Now, I don't buy the malls myself. I'm a consultant, but I have investors that buy the malls and they hire me to fix them. So this happened to one particular mall here in Florida in Oviedo. It's called the Oviedo Mall. And there was 3 department stores, Macy's, Sears, and Dillard's. And Macy's closed and Sears closed and most of the national chains closed. And then all of a sudden, COVID hit in around 2020. And the mall closed for a while because of the health hazards. And most of the tenants closed. This thing became a disaster. So how do you fix it? Well, you got to sit in the parking lot and you got to decide what's good. What does this market need? The good news is every mall is built in a great intersection, 2 big highways, because they're 1 million square feet. And as long as you got a good location, it's great real estate. You just got to figure out what to do with it. Well, here's what I did with it. I looked at this and I realized that Oviedo's a pretty high-end community. And I realized that there wasn't a whole lot of entertainment around, and they were putting up apartments all over the place because people were always moving to Florida, but they were putting the apartments along the roads by the residential houses. It was creating a lot of traffic. Well, I took that mall and I said, you know what? I'm going to knock down the department stores. I'm going to put up apartments. And you know what? When you put apartments in a mall parking lot, which is in a commercial area, it's not near the houses. It's near a major highway. So the people that live in those apartments get right on the highways and go to work. Doesn't bring traffic into the neighborhoods. The people love it. Then I decided I'm going to make it a mixed use project. Mixed use means eat, sleep, work, play. So brought in restaurants, brought in apartments, brought in hotels, brought in jobs and places of destination and entertainment, play. I took half the mall on one side, and I'm not done with this yet. I'm still working on it. And I created what I'm calling Medical Main Street. You realize that, think about it. When's the last time that you went to a doctor's office? I don't know where you live, but where I live over here, my wife says, you're getting old, go to the doctor. And I'm like, where's the doctor's office? I don't know where the doctor's office is. She says, well, here's the address. I'm like, I don't know what it is. I had to Google it. It's in some little brick building and way in the back of no place. And I get in there and I walk in and they got like 3-year-old magazines next to the chairs. And the girl says, it's COVID. You got to download this app and go sit in your car. And I'm like, how long do I got to wait? Well, it's going to be 2 hours. I'm sitting in my car waiting 2 hours for my doctor's appointment. And guess what? Bingo, it hit me. And I said, wait a minute. Medical offices at the mall. I'll create a Medical Main Street. And guess what? You download the app, and instead of sitting in your car, go to the food court. Go get your nails done. Go work out at the fitness center. Go get a craft beer. Go to the movies. Go to the Barnes and Noble and read a book. You got 2 hours to kill. You see, having a destination in a mall brings people. They have to come for the doctor's appointment. People used to shop malls because they wanted to go look around and see stuff. But when they could buy it online, they didn't have to come and look around. But they got to come to a destination. and that's their doctor's offices. So now I've got people coming to the mall again, and they've got to wait 2 hours for their doctor's appointment. So they're walking around the mall shopping and doing stuff. You see, that's creative thinking. I made it on the cover of the Orlando Medical Magazine with that idea. They never heard of it before. And I just came up with it because my wife told me I had to go get a doctor's checkup. That's how these things happen. So you got to be creative. Eat, sleep, work, play. And when you have people living on the premises, they can work on the premises, and then they can be entertained. They go to the theaters and go eat out on the premises. And then they go home to their apartment on the premises. It's called internal flow. It means they never leave the premises, creates no traffic. That's the ideal mini city in suburbia. I'm telling you, a lot of people are doing this. That's just what I'm doing. And that's only one mall. I'm looking at fixing a bunch of malls that way. So when you're an entrepreneur, you got to come up with creative, interesting ways to solve problems, fix retail, fix shopping centers, and bring them back to life. It's kind of called an evolution. You have to help the shopping center or the mall evolve into the next level. These are great opportunities, and they happen all the time in the shopping center business. Started off way back in the 40s and 50s with downtowns, Main Street, and then it became shopping centers, Kmart's and Walmart's, and then it became power centers, and then it became malls with department stores, and then it became Amazon, and then it became mixed use, eat, sleep, work, play developments. And you always want to have some shopping there too, but you don't need 1 million square feet of retail anymore in a mixed use project. You might need 50, 60, 70,000 square feet of unique shops to serve the people in the community. So that's just one of my entrepreneurial businesses. So what'd you think?
Definitely empowering, Mr. Kevin. Something brewing that will benefit for everybody. And is it included to your Book of Me, the one you told us?
Yes, it is. As a matter of fact, because I talk too much, my book got so long that I had 70 chapters, actually, I think, or 66 chapters. And well, it was over 500 pages, and I was only up to chapter 60. And the people that were helping me said, "You can't write a book that long. It's like War and Peace. You can't do that, Kevin." And I said, "Well, I'm not going to take anything out." So here's what I did. I took the last 6 chapters of my book that were kind of more visual and than wordy. And what I did was I took a QR code, and I put the QR code in the book, just like this.
QR
And
code. Okay.
I put pictures, and then I put the QR code so the reader could just simply go to the QR code and watch the video of the same exact chapter on my YouTube page, Planet Hypes. So the last 6 chapters are QR codes and photographs about the chapter, and they take you right to my YouTube page. And then you can hear me just like this talk about that chapter, like the development chapter. I probably tell that same story in that chapter on the video. Because if I was going to keep writing that book out, this thing would have been 800 pages. And that's way too many. These are
Become
500.
World Almanac.
Yeah. I did that with my music page. I did that with my Mayor's Run. I did that with a whole bunch of them, chapters. I did them on video. And my restaurant, I owned a restaurant. The best part about the restaurant was making the commercials. I made some funny commercials for the restaurant. I just had a ball doing that. I didn't make much money on the restaurant. COVID killed me and put me out of business. But it was a great experience because I never owned a restaurant. I've done a lot of things as an entrepreneur just because. My wife says to me, "Why'd you open a restaurant? You've never done any restaurant work. How do you know how to run it?" And I said, "I didn't know how to run it." She goes, "Well, then why'd you open it?" I said, "Because I had 2 friends of mine who wanted to open a restaurant, and I told them they're crazy. It's a lot of work." They said, "Well, we still want to do it." And I said, "Well, I like hanging out with you guys, so I'll do it with you." So I chipped in. We all did it. We had a blast. We lost our money, but we had a great time, and I made some great commercials, and it's great memories, and it's going to be a great chapter in the book. So sometimes when you're an entrepreneur, you don't always make money. Matter of fact, most of the time you don't make money, but you learn a lot. Then you learn how to go forward and not make the same mistakes, and then try it again and try it again until you get it right. For me, commercial real estate has really been successful for me because I just seem to be a natural with creative ideas and also with numbers. I'm a numbers guy, and that's critical for commercial real estate. So that's part of my entrepreneurial adventures. I've got many more. If you want, I don't know how much time we got left, but if you want, I can tell you more.
Yes, and thank you so much for sharing your entrepreneurial, well, journey. I hope people will learn from it and buy the book. So, one more last question, Mr. Kevin. What inspired you to become entrepreneur?
I kind of think it was in my blood. Uh,
DNA.
I never went to college. I was a street kid from Queens, and I was a hippie, had long hair. I worked in a factory actually, and just because of that, when I finally got into, I couldn't get. I worked at a bank for a while. My parents begged me to cut my hair, so I finally did, and they had a friend who got me a job in a bank, and I took the job and I started as a teller because I had no college, and I worked my way up to head teller, and then they would send these college kids to me and ask me to train them. I would train them in teller. I would train them in special services. I would train them in how to do many, many things in the bank. And then these kids would move on and become assistant managers, and I'd stay a head teller. And finally, I said to the manager one day, I said his name was Fred. I said, "Hey, Fred, when do I get on the coffee drinking roller skating program like these kids?" And he goes, "What do you mean?" I said, "Well, they come to me. I teach them everything they need to know. They drink coffee with you, and then they roller skate right past me, become managers. What happened to me?" And he goes, "Here's what he told me. This is true. Well, it takes a certain amount of seasoning, Kevin. You have to have a certain amount of seasoning." And what he was really saying is, you don't have a college degree, so I'm not promoting you. Isn't that ridiculous? But that was true. So I realized that I wasn't going to make it in your typical corporate type job because I didn't have a college degree. So I decided to go into real estate. And the real estate, you only needed two things: good with people, good with numbers. And I love people. I'm a people person, and I'm great with numbers. And that made me a real estate guy. And that ended up making me an entrepreneur. I'm very glad I went down this road and didn't go to boring college. But that may not be for everybody. Some people should go to college and learn a trade, an accountant or a doctor or a lawyer. Yeah, you got to go to college for certain trades. But if you're going for some liberal arts degree, you're wasting your money. Just figure out what you're good at and then go for it. So that's how I got into being entrepreneurial and starting different businesses and trying a lot of things. It was really because I had no college degree and I just had to fend for myself. And that's kind of the way I did it.
And again, Mr. Kevin, thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and wisdom to the world. So, can you please invite our listeners to support your business, your book, or whatever projects that you're doing right now?
Well, thank you. Yes, please buy the Book of Me, The Life and Times of Kevin Hipes, who's the New York Forrest Gump. It's got all my stories in it. Or go to my YouTube page and watch my videos. It's called Planet Hipes. Or go to my other YouTube page, my rock and roll page called The End, and type in The End Guarantee. And on Spotify or on Apple Music, and you'll see one of my records pop up. And it's 45 years old I finally put them on I finally released them, 20 of them. So I've done a lot of crazy things, and I've made a little money, made a lot of money, and lost a lot of money. But I'm an interesting
Yes,
guy, and I think you'll love my stories.
definitely. Let's buy the book so that we can earn millions of money, just like Mr. Kevin. Being entrepreneurial is something else. So, Mr. Kevin, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Multicom people, see you soon.